Hello and welcome to ThePrint. Today I shall be speaking to you about strategic depth. Strategic depth, the prevalence or absence of it, is a key determinant of a country's national security strategy. It refers to the distance between the front lines, also called the tactical battle area or TBA, and the base from which the army draws its strength in terms of men, material and resources. The space between the two is known as the communication zone or com zone, through which pass the roads and railroads connecting the two, the lines of communications. This zone has the intermediate logistical and administrative elements to support the troops in the TBA, including various population centers. The depth of this zone and the value objectives that lie within it will determine if a country can adopt a strategy of trading space for time when confronted with an adverse situation. During World War II, when Germany launched Operation Barbarossa in June 1941 against the Soviet Union, the Russians made full use of the strategic depth in the face of rapid German advances. The Russians, who were forced to retreat, followed a scorched earth policy, destroying or burning everything of military value, including crops and livestock, plant and machinery, denying any source of sustenance to the Germans within the communication zone. As a result, the German lines of communication, rearward towards their base in Germany, kept getting longer and longer, eventually becoming unviable and ultimately succumbing to the severe Russian winter. This trading space for time allowed the Russians to regroup, kickstart their industrial production, and then go on the counteroffensive when fully ready. However, what does a country do when it is not big enough to have strategic depth? Then it has to look over its shoulder to artificially create that depth within the neighboring country or kingdom. The great Maratha warrior, Chhatrapati Shivaji, was among the first to employ this strategy, possibly even before it was ever enunciated. When faced with the overwhelming strength of the Mughal armies, rather than give battle against unfavorable odds, he would fall back to the territory of neighboring Bijapur while continuing to harass them using guerrilla tactics. From the early 1980s, Pakistan started looking towards Afghanistan to provide this strategic depth vis-à-vis India, a thought first articulated in the National Defence University at Islamabad. This is the main reason for the interference in the internal affairs of Afghanistan, namely securing a sympathetic regime in Kabul. However, the plan does not seem to have worked, with their western front with Afghanistan as volatile as ever, and the Taliban showing that they are no puppets. Nevertheless, this contingency remains part of Pakistan's strategic calculus. What happens though when the country has neither the luxury of strategic depth nor a friendly neighbor? Faced with such a situation, this depth has to be created by occupying territories beyond one's own boundaries. Israel is a case in point. Following the Six-Day War of 1967, Israel continued with its occupation of the Sinai Peninsula as it afforded the depth against any surprise offensive by Egypt from the south. This occupation was to pay handsome dividends during the Yom Kippur War of 1973, when Israeli forces could hold off the Egyptians at the Mitla and Giddi passes that lie within the Sinai. This occupation continued even after the war, right until 1982, when Israel relinquished control of the Sinai as part of the conditions of the Egypt-Israel Peace Accord of 1979. Similarly, Israel continues to occupy the Golan Heights to the north, which it had captured from Syria in the Six-Day War. Additionally, Israel is in occupation of the west bank of the Jordan River, an area of about 5,800 square kilometers, which gives it a much needed depth at its shortest point which is barely 15 kilometers from east to west. India is blessed to have the advantage of a large landmass with its core areas comprising industrial centers, major cities, road and rail networks spread all over the country. Yet, many of these lucrative targets also lie within or close to the TBA, where they could be overrun in the initial stages of an enemy offensive. Therefore, it has to carefully calibrate its strategy with respect to its potential adversaries, China to the north and Pakistan to the west. Against each of these two, the strategy at the operation level will be different in various sectors of the border, depending on various factors such as the terrain, the strategic importance of the area, and the political ramifications of what such losses might entail. On the western front, we may afford to trade space for time in the desert sector, allowing the enemy offensive to run out of steam due to the paucity of any inherent natural resources, especially water. However, the same would not be true for the north. Major population centers having political and religious significance, Amritsar, for example, which is just about 30 kilometers plus from the international border and well within the range of enemy long-range artillery, would have to be defended at all costs. Its fall would do irreparable damage to India's reputation, both domestically and internationally. The military strategies for the two sectors, deserts and plains, would therefore differ radically. To the north, India shares a border of over 3,000 kilometers with Tibet, illegally occupied by China in the 1950s. Here too, the strategies for defending these borders in the different sectors, northern, central and eastern, would vary. Post the Galwan clash of 2020, both the People's Liberation Army and the Indian Army have fortified their positions and are forward deployed, with neither side inclined to cede any space to the other. In the central sector, bordering Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, lie places of religious importance which once again have to be defended strongly right from the outset. The same is true for the Sikkim and Tawang areas of the eastern sector. If at all the option of trading space of time can be exercised, it would be in the other valleys of eastern Arunachal Pradesh. But this option too has to be exercised with care, since China claims this as part of South Tibet, a claim reinforced by the official map published as late as 20th August 2023. Hence the dilemma. This is General Naravane for ThePrint.